Christmas time. The time of holiday greetings, trash cans full of fruitcake, that pine tree smell you just can't get out of your nose, and slaughtering elves with tennis balls. We're talking about Headbangers in holiday hell. Fresh out the oven. Have you ever wondered what a game like Zombies Ate My Neighbors mixed with Nuclear Throne may look like? Well, that's what Perch Suman, a developer of Vicar Lane Game Studio, thought when they put together Headbangers in Holiday Hell. It's an isometric roguelike shooter, meaning that it has both randomly generated levels and permadeath. So anytime you lose, it's all the way back to the start. But what is the start, and why have the holidays gone to hell? Well, honestly, I don't really know. The game itself doesn't really do anything at all to get across any kind of narrative or plot. Players are just kinda thrown into a level with a basic objective of saving a specific number of people before they can leave. There are some hints as to what's going on with voice lines, such as when you die, the main character not really dying, but instead just letting the spirit of Christmas flow through them, or something. I don't know. The only real plot is stated on the game's Steam store page. You didn't buy your hideous woolly jumper. You didn't buy, gift, and receive enough presents. And worst of all, you didn't make a Christmas tree. You and your fellow rebel scoundrels are not gonna ruin the sanctity of the celebration of the satanic cult. The big red one sending his craziest minions to quell your nonconformist antics. Let's introduce them to the untamed power of heavy metal. Odd wording aside, as it seems English isn't exactly the devs' first language, let alone their main language, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I like metal. I'm a big fan of bands like Lich King, Toxic Holocaust, Flesh God Apocalypse, and Motorhead. And while I'm not obsessed with Christmas nor the holiday season, I don't actively try to avoid it. From my experience, metalheads honestly are some of the people who are the most into the Christmas season. There's tons of metal songs and albums about it alone. Everything from the Trans-Siberian Orchestra to Austrian Death Machine's version of Jingle Bells, or even Rob Halford from Judas Priest covering We Three Kings. Headbangers specifically goes out of its way to set up the idea of metalheads versus Christmas icons, as everyone you save are made to look like stereotypical groupies, while the main character spouts off references to metal songs from time to time, while looking somewhat like Lemmy from Motorhead, complete with a poor vocal impression of the man.
I am the god of hellfire.
For a game like this, story really isn't the main focus, similar to the games it's inspired by. I mean, what narrative did Zombies Ate My Neighbors have outside of zombies eating my neighbors? The main character, however, isn't the only one who gets to speak, which is more bad than good. The game only has a handful of enemies, with 3 separate bosses that make its randomly generated design rather limited. In any given level, you'll mostly find yourself up against a variety of differently colored elves, and each one always has to say something when they eventually die. Their color indicates how much damage they can take and dish out before biting in the dust, but there's only like maybe 3 lines at most for them to use as their final words, all of which reference you being put on the naughty list.
Naughty, that's not very nice.
It's not too bad at the start of a run, since the first few levels don't have that many enemies to deal with, but as things progress and more of them start showing up, it gets real repetitive real fast. This also happens with the game's level design in general. There's really only 2 types of levels, your basic house and garage theme, or shooting your way through piles of elves in the mall. House levels are pretty much always the same. Players start outside, work their way inside, then go outside again to exit. You can either focus solely on going through the house or burst through the garage to pick up some items that may or may not be helpful when dealing with the elf menace. Even though you can break both doors and windows, you can only enter and exit through doors, while you can shoot through windows. You can't, like, dive into the house or anything cool like that. Nah, just shooting through it, which can be sort of problematic, because when things die, they leave points, and points only stick around for a short period of time. Enemies mostly stay within the house itself, and will begin pouring in from off-screen as you smash your way through it door by door. But the house's floor plan is really the only part of it that's randomized. Kitchens, bedrooms, living rooms, bathrooms, or closets may be in different places with different doorways connecting them all, and different rooms with other headbangers to save, but it's only a small area that mostly plays the same regardless of which level you happen to be in. Unlike the titles Holiday Hell is inspired by, while the game does have a nice destructible environment, there's not a whole lot to uncover either. Weapons are oddly limited to only 2 being on you at a time, with a weird progression system that kinda neuters their entire idea in the first place. You got your main weapon, your special secondary weapon that has to charge up by taking out enemies before you can use it, and 3 types of inventory items. That's it! On top of that, you can only carry 1 of each type of weapon with you at a time, unlike inventory items that don't seem to have any limitations. Somehow, the main character can shove 30 gas cans into his trousers, but has nowhere to put a second main weapon at the same time. At the start of the game, when you first play it, most things are going to be locked off anyway, with the probability of success being rather low. The way weapons are handed out throughout a run is by purchasing them from yellow crates, but if you don't have any unlocked or have already collected everything that you have unlocked, those crates will turn out to be nothing more than traps with enemies hidden inside them. It's only between runs, after you've given into the spirit of Christmas, that you get to use points you've gathered throughout said run to purchase permanent upgrades. Here is the only place to get access to more weapons, as they can be unlocked over time and start appearing within a level, but there's still yet another caveat to them. You see, weapons work on a tier or upgrade system. At the start of a run, you'll always get a water gun as your primary weapon and a flamethrower as the secondary, regardless of what you have unlocked. Killing enemies or just breaking stuff in general causes CDs to drop that can be collected for points, and points let you buy either primary weapon ammo or crack open yellow crates. Due to the weapon tier list, however, it's always predictable as to what will be in the next crate to open, since it will always be whatever the next tier weapon is. If you have the water gun, the next primary weapon you will always get is the paintball gun. If you have the paintball gun, the only next option is the tennis ball launcher, and if you've got that, you will then get access to the nail gun, which is the top tier primary weapon. There's no way to go from the water gun to the tennis ball launcher, nor a way to swap back to a previous tier weapon if you happen to run out of ammo or don't like how one works. Both the water gun and paintball gun just shoot at enemies, with paintballs firing a little bit faster, but tennis balls will ricochet off enemies and solid objects, with the nail gun being both fast at firing and having a chance to ricochet as well. After all of these weapons are unlocked, every run through the game has them in the same order, and early levels become more about farming points to get the next tier weapon, more than just having a good time. Farming for points is already a tedious idea in of itself, but made even more tedious due to how many breakable things are in a level and how inconsistent the points they drop are. I just can't help myself on the first few levels to break everything possible so I can get as many points as possible to upgrade my weapons as fast as I can. Sure, players don't have to play this way and can just focus on the actual fun part of the game, game, being shooting enemies while dodging attacks, but doing so makes your actual chances of winning a run lower than being methodical. Secondary weapons are the same, with the first being a flamethrower, then going to a fireworks cannon, and ending with chucking vinyl records at enemies to cut their heads off. I gotta give the devs some credit for having multiple animations depending on how an enemy dies. They'll just do the usual falling over dead when shot, but there's a chance that they can run around on fire when using the flamethrower or explosive weapons. Enemies are also smarter than a basic horde, since elves will actively run away to recollect themselves if they get the chance while their health is low, instead of just mindlessly throwing themselves into the fray. There are, however, a few environmental things that can be used to your advantage. Due to elves' obsession with Santa Claus, turning on a TV is a good way to distract them and get them to pile up in one area. They'll also do this if you place down a blow-up doll, which is something we're not going to go into right now because it's kind of weird. Once they're all grouped up together, laying down some aggressive fire with a secondary weapon or placing a gas can nearby to blow them up is a great way to cause some carnage. It can also be advantageous while going through a house to keep in mind things that can cause water to pool up on the floor, as placing a toaster down on this water will cause it to become electrified. Enemies stepping on electrified water will take shock damage over time, and thankfully, for some reason, you're completely immune to this. So it can be good to electrocute a puddle between you and your enemies and just watch as they run into it. But you do lose the chance at getting some extra points by doing this. The devs decided to add a bit more strategy to Holiday Hell's gameplay by including a glory kill mechanic. If instead of flat out killing an elf, you instead get it close to death, there's a chance that it'll enter a stunned state for a short period of time. During this time, you can run up and kill it in a variety of creative ways, which causes not only more points to drop than normally killing them, but is also the main way to get pickups to spawn. There's only 3 pickups that can show up in the entire game, but they're always a good thing to grab when you can. You've got an hourglass that slows down time, a skull for insta-kills that also has a chance of stunning enemies with only 1 shot, or a heart that gives you more health, and is the most important one in my opinion. Learning how to get health in this game is really one of the most important parts of getting through any run of it. Each house level will have 1 heart pickup on the opposite side of the map from where you start, and each mall level has a red car at the start that you can blow up in order to get a heart to drop as well. But other than that, the only way to heal yourself is from glory kills. Your health can easily be whittled down just by how chaotic things can get as the game goes on. Rooms can quickly fill up with bullets, not to mention the homing bombs elves and trash cans throw, or the large area of effect explosives have. After a while, the game starts sending gremlins carrying gas cans that explode on death at you, which will not only take out nearby elves, but also do a good bit of damage to you if you get caught in the explosion. Finding the sweet spot to be close enough to shoot explosives while far enough away not to get hit by them is ideal. There is a dodge move that makes players immortal for a short period of time. That's good for getting away from attacks, but when things get real hectic, there's always the chance you'll dodge away from 1 shot straight into another. I'm not entirely sure if the dodge roll has a short window of opportunity where it can do damage at the end of it. And this does happen when I roll into this tree, but no matter how many times I do so, it never seemed to break. That either means rolling does an extremely low amount of damage that it's not worth it, or no damage at all, which is a little bit confusing. Overall, Headbangers Holiday Hell is a fun little game that's limited by its own mechanics. It could really use a bit more of everything from weapons to more in-depth randomization options and even more bosses. Every run, players will always face the same 3 bosses in the same order. First Rudolph, then Rudolph's ghost, and finally Santa Claus himself. Rudolph and Santa aren't really all that complicated, as they'll mostly just stand still and let you hit them, while Rudolph's ghost is the only enemy in the entire game that takes a specific strategy to deal with. This guy only takes damage from explosions, meaning there's only two main ways to hit him, either by blowing up a gas can near him or setting off a gremlin close enough that it gets caught in the explosion. Using gas cans can be tricky since Rudolph's attacks can also set them off, meaning that you'll get hit in the process if you aren't careful. There is a third way to do damage, but it's one you've got to plan for. The fireworks cannon's fireworks also count as explosive when they detonate and can be used to damage the ghost, but the fireworks cannon is only the second-tier secondary weapon, meaning players have to go out of their way not to upgrade to the third-tier Death Disc vinyl records, as those don't explode and won't do any damage. On top of that, like I said before, there's no way to revert to a weapon of a previous tier, so once you upgrade to level 3, you're stuck with it and can't go back. That means for the whole run up to that boss fight, you have to purposefully weaken yourself for over half of the levels in the game just to be able to deal with this boss in somewhat of a safe manner, and that's not all that great. This, along with the weapon tier system in general, made the start of every run a slow process, as I would always take my time to get as many glory kills as I could and break as much as possible in order to maximize points and upgrade my weapons as fast as possible, before being able to actually have some fun letting loose and shooting things. What helps make this the main option for playing the game is that, unlike in Zombies Ate My Neighbors, captives aren't targets for enemies. Only the player is. Since captives can't die and there are only so many enemies that spawn in a level, players can easily stay around for as long as they want to rack up as many points as they possibly can. And if you actually want to have a successful run, there's no reason not to do that. I don't know what could be done to fix this problem since it's a core aspect of the game's mechanics, but it's what really turned Headbangers Holiday Hell from a fun little game to pass the time during the holiday season into an exercise of patience, and what made deaths feel extremely punishing since I'd have to start the TDM all over again when it happens. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think of the game or this video in the comments section. I've been MegapieMan, and I'll talk to you guys later. Want to see more of my stuff? Click on the video on the left for Total Chaos, a standalone Doom 2 mod that took over 10 years to develop. Or click on the right for Creaks, a game where furniture wants to eat you.